Text this morning is Matthew chapter 6. So if you've got a Bible, I encourage you to open it and land there. This is part of the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus is introducing so many critical aspects of life in the kingdom of God that he's teaching them. What is it like to have life in the kingdom of God? And unsurprisingly, he talks about money. He had already talked about sort of three hidden secret disciplines of the Christian life, that of giving to the needy. Like he started his series of disciplines with giving. Secret disciplines. Give to the needy. Secret discipline. Pray in your closet. Secret discipline. Fast from food. These are secret disciplines. And then, knowing that this has likely stirred up in people's hearts some anxiety, he begins to address the question of money. And so this is what he says. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus understood the reach of Babylon. We talked about Babylon last week. If you're like, Babylon? Where's that? But it's that move of empire to always draw us in to power. And where the question of money comes up, there is power. But there's some things that Jesus knows about us. Jesus knows that your heart will be owned by your treasures. Notice he said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Will you say it with me? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In other words, your treasure will own your heart. Your heart will be owned by treasure. Your heart, in the conception that Jesus had in his culture and the history and culture of the Bible, is that your heart is this sort of internal governing center. It is more than just your emotions. It is your intellect, your will, your emotions, your moral character, and your spiritual orientation with God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Your seat of will, your seat of power. Love God from there. And he says, where your heart is, there your treasure will be. Where your will is being oriented, there your treasure will be. So, choose your treasures carefully, because your treasures will also shape your heart. There's a mighty feedback loop going on here. And he says you can have earthly treasures or you can have heavenly treasures. How many of you have some earthly treasures? Yeah, I'm so glad. You all are so rich. You have earthly treasures. We're grateful for those, right? We know and we often treat them in our circle as blessings from God. In other circles, I have friends who say, I earned it, it's mine. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. They're like the seagulls. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. swooping in to take everything. It's mine. Leave no crumbs behind. It's mine. And though we may have money in the bank, though we may have an emergency fund, though we may have money even invested in companies, so we own a little bit of a company, and we see the trajectory of what 30 years can do with compounding interest. I mean, you all know that's like one of the 8th wonders of the world. It's compounding interest. Those are earthly treasures. And he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And so he says, and offers an alternative. You could have heavenly treasures. Heavenly treasures then can actually be stored up as well. When you have earthly treasures, you worry about the market. When you have earthly treasures, you worry that someone's going to take it or that you're going to spend it all. When you have earthly treasures, you worry that, my goodness, it takes so much to have a car. Who knew about insurance when you're 18? Everything costs and costs and costs. And so we become anxious there with earthly treasures. Having earthly treasures is not the problem. The problem is when you also lack heavenly treasures that you say are of greater value and worth. And so my true energy for storing up is to store up heavenly treasures. I'm redirecting my will towards heavenly treasures, knowing and being known by God. Receiving my identity instead of just constructing it. Being loved by God. Giving myself to doing the work and will of God. Responding to Jesus. Rightly valuing people as greater than money. The list could go on of heavenly treasures. In fact, the incredible worth of the soul is the greatest treasure you personally have. What does it value and merit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? Put your soul in the heavenly bank. Do you know the issue of our treasures and our heart is that we develop habits of heart that we're not even aware of. The year before I graduated from high school, Robert Bellah wrote a really famous book. I don't know if you know it. Habits of the Heart. It was written in 1985, so that may seem like a really old book to you. But in it, he was trying to examine America and North American values and what is happening to the habits of our heart. And he said this, our culture does not give us much guidance as to how to fill the contours of this autonomous, self-responsible self. In other words, we're incredibly individualistic. Our culture is always trying to set us free. If you find yourself trying to differentiate from your parents when you're 13, you're really absorbing our independent, self-defining culture. Define yourself. It didn't just start in the 2000s. It started early in North America. Define yourself. And he says we're not getting a lot of help with this, except in two areas. One is the area of work, the realm par excellence of utilitarian individualism. The other area is the lifestyle enclave, the realm par excellence of expressive individualism. Your work and your lifestyle. How many of you have little streams of work and lifestyle on your Instagram? Wow, how many of you don't have Instagram? What else are you looking at on Instagram? It's about work and lifestyle, isn't it? How are you going to earn a lot of money? How are you going to spend it? Work and lifestyle. Maybe it's not about the money. Maybe it's about nature lifestyle. How many of you have nature lifestyle? Art lifestyle. Good looks lifestyle. Lifting heavy lifestyle. I mean, it's all about the lifestyle and the work. And this started, and this was known as a feature of our culture in 1985. The internet didn't exist yet. That was back in the days. Thank you for that, Aiden. Thank you. He goes, Robert Bellah goes on to note the difficulty with this. Next slide. He says, in the absence of any objectifiable criteria or right or wrong, good or evil, the self and its feelings become our only moral guide. There, each individual is entitled to his or her own bit of space and is utterly free within its boundaries. But while everyone may be entitled to his or her own private space, only those who have enough money can in fact afford to purchase the private property required to do their own thing. It's like having an island. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. Do you want Treasure Island? Or do you want treasure heaven? And Jesus strangely teaches us to pray, oh God, may your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So that somehow, I think, even in that prayer, we get little taste of the experiences of kingdom treasures and heavenly treasures, even right here on earth. When your heart is rightly aligned. When you've been drawn out from just work and lifestyle enclave as the defining features of your life. Jesus recommends BHT. This is not a stock recommendation. BHT. Next slide. The Bank of Heavenly Treasures. BHT. Remember it. Are you investing in BHT? The Bank of Heavenly Treasures. Jesus knows not only about our treasures in our heart, Jesus knows about the health of your soul. He knows that your soul's health will be impacted by your gaze. I know it seemed a little strange that all of a sudden Jesus shifted to talking about your eyes and the health of your eyes and what's going on inside your life. But what do you do when you have great treasures? You look at them. If you treasure yourself, you just look at yourself. Say, hey, you're LG today. Looking good. And, you know, this is what we do. If you're really keyed up about your investment portfolio, you look at it every day. If you're able to just let it go, you forget about it and you look at it once a year when you do your taxes. What you look at also influences your soul. Notice what he says. Let's read it together. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Your eyes are the lamp of your body. And we are always looking for treasures, the next shiny thing. Squirrel. And we're looking. What we gaze at definitely impacts our lives. And there has never been quite the time in the generation that you are currently living in who's been so drawn to fix their gaze on that which is passing quickly away. It's designed to do that. Jesus knows this. And he knows there's great competition for your attention. He knew this before the internet. Jesus knows that what you attend to either enlightens or dims your soul. Jesus knows, next slide, that the lens, the way you see the world, will also affect the health of your soul. If you see the world primarily as a competitive environment, that will affect your soul. If you see the world as always out to get you, that will affect your soul. If you see relationships as if someone's always trying to get advantage of you, that will affect your soul. If something is changed in the way you see the world so that you see the world as a place of great abundance, that will affect your soul. This is my Father's world. If you see the world that way, it will affect your soul. If you see the world as if there is enough for everyone, that will affect your soul. If you see the world as a place in which you can trust others and you will risk trust instead of always fearing, that will affect your soul. A friend of mine was discovering that he had cataracts. And so he needed to have cataract surgery. It's not covered under MSP. So he was figuring out which kind of lens he would have put in his eye. I was like, Peter, this just freaks me out. You're having to decide which kind of lens. He's like, yeah, if I get this lens, these will be the benefits. If I get this lens, that'll be the benefits. And I said, and then what else is going to happen? He says, I won't need glasses anymore. I was like, man, that's incredible. The changed lens changed the way he was able to live. And Jesus actually is offering a change of lens so that he can change our souls. This, too, is another powerful feedback loop. And it will affect the way you hold and spend money. The Desert Fathers said this about money, that he who is the slave of money guards his money as a slave. But he who has thrown off the yoke of his slavery to money dispenses money as if he is its master. Oh, who gave that idea to that group of Christians? It was Jesus. You see, Jesus knows something else. Jesus knows that you are not made for two masters. Let's read it together. No one can serve two masters. Have you ever had a situation where you had two bosses? It's just like, what? And they each had their own opinion. It's terrible. You need to know who your boss is. And Jesus understands that most of us assume that in having money, we are the boss of money. And he's making it clear that's not so. There's a two-master syndrome. And this happens when you sort of wave at God, but your gaze is set on the money, 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 money. You're waving at God, saying, hey, God, I see you over there, but hey, look at that money. Look at that great salary. Look at that opportunity. And you just wave at God with no wisdom, with no sense of where your treasure is. In fact, your heart is being dominated by guarding your treasure. Now, some of you don't worry about this a lot because you don't have a lot of treasure at the moment. I know this. I know it's true. Student life is situational poverty. Immigration is often situational poverty. It's just a situation for a time that you hope isn't going to last long, that you're just going to pass through this time. This is why over 300 student households a week come to the Acadia Food Hub, a food bank here on campus. It's situational poverty you're passing through. I know you're passing through. But someday, somebody's going to try to sell you a security system. Because you've got to worry that someone's going to break in my house and get all the money that I have stored in my mattress. I don't know, like how much treasures are you all keeping in your homes? Who cares if somebody breaks in? What's really there to take? Maybe your computer. That's the one, right? That's the one. I mean, how many forks does it matter if they take? But when you've got really wealth, you have silver forks, and you're like, oh, price of silver is going up. And so you worry. In fact, the Proverbs tell us that those who build high gates, high security systems, actually invite destruction. Because everyone's wondering, well, what are you hiding over there? Maybe I need some of that. Better, he says, to just have enough. And so, when you have money, money becomes your master. Unless you've let your heart be mastered by someone else. Flip side of this is not having money can also let money be your master. Where you say, well, I see that opportunity out there, or I hear God calling me to do something, or I really have this better and greater vision of my life, but I can't do it because I don't have money. That's money being the master again. Instead of being set free to enter into the abundance and the opportunity and the provision and the way of God, because if you get your head up and your eyes open and your heart free from anxiety, you can see more opportunities. But the two-master syndrome means that you're either going to hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And so our determination has to be, I will serve God, and God will teach me so that money becomes my servant. God will free me so money becomes a servant. Now, the word money here isn't just about cash in your pocket or coins in your pocket. The word money is actually a word mammon. And some of you in your Bible translations, it may have actually translated it as that, mammon. You can say it to your neighbor, mammon. And mammon is this sort of this aspect of stuff, and that stuff develops its own personality and power and draw. And Jesus is inviting you to ask the question, who's the money master in your life? Who's the master of your life? It's a very simple question and principle. During the next 40 days, Lent will be going on. And Lent is the opportunity to move towards Easter and the celebration of Jesus. But Lent actually is a recognition of our own finiteness, that we actually are going to die. And the truth is that in knowing and calculating that you're going to die, you know that you don't take anything with you. Naked you come into the world, naked you go out. From dust to dust. There's great wisdom in calculating that. And it right sizes the issue of money and possessions and comforts in our lives. It right sizes the greater treasures in our life to be valued beyond just money. It actually invites us to be freed from greed, which Paul calls a form of idolatry. And so for the next 40 days, I want to invite you to use the Lectio app. It's on the link tree, of course. Use the Lectio app and pray daily on a 40-day journey with the Desert Fathers and Mothers with 24/7 prayer. The Desert Fathers and Mothers lived in the 300s, and it was a movement to leave the city, to draw away from wealth, and to draw closer to heavenly treasures. It'll be an interesting journey, so I invite you with us on that. Who is your money master? Zacchaeus climbed a tree, didn't he? He climbed a tree because he was wee. He was short. And he climbed up in the tree to see who he could see. Thank you. Thank you. You're following along. Why did Zacchaeus climb that tree? Zacchaeus, the man who was a tax collector. Zacchaeus, the man who had great wealth. Zacchaeus, the man who had position but was actually in a squeeze. Because he was tolerated by the Romans for his skill at collecting taxes, he was despised and hated by his Jewish brothers because he collected taxes. The tax collectors were known for lining their pockets with a little bit extra. They were given judicial rights and privileges to collect more. And apparently he had collected more. But something was drawing him to Jesus. And because of the crowd, he couldn't get close, so he climbed up in a tree to see Jesus. I don't know you. When's the last time you saw a short, wealthy person climb up in a tree? Unheard of, right? Sort of humiliating. And so in that move, Zacchaeus was actually humbling himself. He climbed up and humbled himself. And Jesus saw him and honored him. Zacchaeus, come down. I'm going to go to your house today. And it says that Zacchaeus gladly welcomed Jesus. He was so excited. This was probably more than he expected. You see, his treasure was shifting. His treasure house was shifting. His heart was moving, drawn to Jesus. And ultimately, the master of his heart would change too. Because there at that banquet where Jesus was seated and just enjoying the hospitality of Zacchaeus, the hospitality of his wealth, something completely opened in the heart and soul of Zacchaeus. Something changed about his eyes and what he would truly value now. And listen to what he says. Zacchaeus stood up at the supper. And he said, Lord, look. Look. Lord, look. Fix your eyes on me. Wow. This is really interesting. He already knew that Jesus had seen him. He already knew that Jesus could see his heart. He already knew that others were missing the transformation that was starting to happen in his life. But now he wanted to make it clear. Here and now, he says, I give half of my possessions to the poor. Oh, do you see the shift of treasures? No longer were his treasures just in his possessions, but now his treasures were in the life of people. I give it to the poor. And, he says, if I have cheated anybody out of anything, can't you imagine that some people in the room began to laugh? His own company around him. What? Yeah, we all know you're a cheat. We know you've won by cheating. He says, if I've cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Wow, a shift of heart. The first evidence, the public evidence of Zacchaeus' transformation wasn't just climbing up the tree. It was declaring his freedom by being able to give. By being able to say, that's not my true treasure. People are my true treasure with God. Look, Lord, he says. There'd been a mighty shift in his life, and it impacted his money. When we come to the table of Jesus, we're actually saying that Jesus is our treasure. When we hold the bread and hold the cup, we are recalling and remembering Jesus and saying, oh, Jesus, you are my treasure. I'm going to gaze upon you here at this table. I'm going to remember you. And this is why it's so important every week that we realign and shift the allegiances of our heart to Jesus, so that we can go out of here having said to the Lord, hey, Lord, look at me. Could you say it with me? Lord, look at me. What a prayer. Lord, look at me. Can you say it? Lord, look at me. Lord, see my heart. Lord, look how I'm shifting the treasures of my life. As we'll see next week, this is actually the pathway to great peace in our lives, even when money is a trouble. Let's stand together. I'm going to invite the worship team to come up. I want to invite you to all be like Zacchaeus, but we don't have trees to climb. But whatever it takes for you in this moment to express humility to Jesus, that's what I want to invite you to do. So if some of you would like to just sort of kneel in front of Jesus, do it carefully. We don't want you falling all the way down. But you can go up to the railing up there, and you can kneel there if you want to kneel. If you want to just open your hands and say, Jesus, I'm humbly opening my hands, or I'm pointing towards you. You're my greatest treasure. Whatever it takes for you right now to just physically and in your heart say to Jesus, look at me, Lord. I'm going to humble myself in front of you. I want to shift my treasures. I want to invest in BHT, the Bank of Heavenly Treasures. And some of you may find along the way that you can't do it, that you feel like there's too much darkness, too much anxiety, that you can't do it, that you thought you had a grip on the money, but money's got a grip on you. That you can't do it. Your future ambitions right now have more a grip on you than you have a grip on God. Ask Jesus for help and surrender to him. He's the kind of master that gives you so much agency. He's not looking to just control and dominate and squish you under his great power. He wants to pump you up, build you up, and to set you free in the Spirit. What are the gifts of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. So much agency in the power and spirit and gift of the freedom of Jesus. When you've been given freedom in him, he's saying, I'm giving you self-control. I'm giving you control of your life. You have the agency in your life about your treasures, about your eyes, about the health of your life, and what you do with money. And all of that comes about because Jesus, though he was rich in heaven, became poor for our sakes. And he gave himself for us. So whatever it takes as we sing this song and prepare for the Lord's Supper, just humble yourself in front of the Lord.